So I want to share with you some stories that data tells. The data is the foundation, and the headlines are what I'll try to pull out of that. Now, the program today is full of stories, so I'm just really starting a trend here. But if you've noticed the first panel session, and the theme is transformation, and transformation is a movement. There's a from and a to. You're transforming from something to something. Sometimes that's smooth and continuous. Sometimes it's disruptive. My own transformation, I want to refer to these 4 quantum laws of B2B media that those of you who were here last year know I posited then, and they still hold true, but I do want to update them. And by the way, all my remarks will be focused on B2B. All of our data that I'm going to be sharing is on B2B. This is a B2B view of the world, no consumer creep here. First, marketing services offering a clawback. Well, I'm just going to set these up as the stage for the data stories. Clawback from what? Well, basically, it's the fact that media companies have basically had taken from their pockets about 50% of the digital marketing spending as advertisers, clients, companies go direct to users and bypass the media companies. So there is a way to claw some of that back, and I want to touch on that. Second, pervasive analytics drives monetization rates. And when I say rates here, I'm not talking about CPMs necessarily, although that's part of it. Talking about the revenue realized from content and paid services and everything related to all of the types of media that we use. Third, this workflow obsession drives loyalty and revenues. This has to do with those of you in the media world mostly who develop solutions and tools which suck down data or content and put it in front of a professional with a tool or a service or a desktop application that's so essential to that professional that they have to use it large portions of their day. We like to call that E squared, or entrenched engagement, because it really is revenue that's repeated and loyalty that's persistent. And finally, following the global growth. Obviously, growth rates in the emerging markets are higher than they are in the European and US markets. Today, I want to focus on the first 2 of these, and it's going to be basically the marketing and advertising side. I'm not going to spend much time on the workflow or the global today. I do want to share some of our most recent data from January 2013, and some of it's actually never been published, so some of this is, as it were, the world premiere of these findings. I just want to keep repeating a theme, and that's what I'll end with in this story. This is a story about pace, about scale, and about mix. So if you just think of pace, scale, and mix, you'll set the stage for a lot that we're going to hear today. So the first quantum law, and the quantum law was obviously last year. I set it up in the context of the CERN collider and the, at the time, yet to be confirmed Higgs boson particle, but shift that rocked the marketing world. This is data that we've tracked. This happens to be US data, but we've done it for the UK, and it's the same shape. This line is the amount of dollars, in this case, that advertisers spend on their own websites. This was a phenomenal shift in everything to do with marketing. It rose rapidly in the early 2000s, but you can see it's leveled out. It's still huge dollars. I mean, 67 million just for scale, billion, and it is billion, just for scale. That's more than Google's global revenue, and this is US dollars. It's more than US television marketing, and it's more than 2 times larger than the entire B2B trade marketing industry. So these are big numbers. But it has leveled out. So does that mean that companies spending on their own sites is leveling? Well, if you look at another overlay we've added, and this is actually owned media. We're now tracking money that companies are spending on their own social engagement. So this doesn't take place on the site. This might take place on a Facebook page, building and curating a Facebook page, Twitter feeds, blogs, LinkedIn. And if you add that on top of the site spending, there's this diversification of ways in which marketers are going direct to their clients is growing. Now, what's the opportunity here for media companies and agencies? And you're going to hear a lot about this today, including some of the breakout sessions. This really sets the stage for some of the content marketing. But when we talk about marketing services, it's much broader than just content marketing. So let's take a look at what that is. This year we've asked advertisers, what are the top 5 activities that you will invest in this broad area of marketing services? And we gave them 21 choices. Now, I don't know if you can read all these. It doesn't matter because I'll point out a few that matter. But the vertical scale is the percent of marketers who said these are where they're going to, the top 5 recipients of their marketing services investments. I mentioned earlier this is all B2B data. We also do this by size of firm because it matters, and we do it by some industry groups. So this happens to be the small firms. And of course, the first thing you see is almost 70% say they'll invest in content for their own sites as their top 5 activities, marketing services activities. The second bar, I think, is somewhat of a revelation, and it is managing their own events. We're tracking the dollars here. That's now surpassed the spending on organized conferences. It's not quite as large yet as organized trade shows. So we talk about companies' own site and content marketing. There's a whole parallel world of companies' own events management. And all of these, what we're looking for here in the hooks, and I would invite you to listen throughout the day today, is where do agencies and media companies play in providing or helping advertisers with these services? Managing your own events, these could be like meet and greets, luncheons, sponsored dinners, breakfasts, one-on-one encounters. The large firm distribution is fairly similar. The big spike in the middle is spending on high-level strategy. Small firms don't spend as much. But what I really want to emphasize is, one, the breadth of this. 21 activities advertisers are spending on, not just content for their own sites, the breadth. And second, look at what's the second tier here. These all get participation or investment, more important, from 30 or so % of advertisers, and it's very traditional legacy marketing. If you can read it, fine. If not, I'll read it to you. Email planning and email execution, and direct mail planning, direct mail execution. These are stated intent to invest in 2013. So I want to get back to my message of pace, scale, and mix. Look at what's in the mix here, and look at what's down in the far right, the 5 and 10% of inclusion in top 5 marketing services investments for 2013. And you see mobile planning and execution, advertising networks, ad exchanges, and behavioral targeting. So pace and scale. Certainly these activities are critical and important. I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying that they're growing rapidly, but their scale is sometimes less than the amount of coverage and discussion that they get. So be aware of that. And really the takeaway here is the mix. And one of the key business opportunities that marketers have and agencies have, media companies and agencies have, is to be what I call masters of the mix. But the proliferation of activities, the proliferation of places to spend money, the confusion that's resulting, helping advertisers and clients with what is the successful mix to solve the real problems of their target audience is a valuable service. Okay, we talked about analytics and pervasive analytics driving monetization rates. We've been asking this question for 8 years. What are the most important factors in how you allocate your spending? We give them a list of 10. I've selected 5 here to tell this part of the story. And the vertical scale is an index. I had to index it because the scores bounce around each year, and I wanted a common base. So they're all indexed to 100% being the average. But this used to drive me crazy. Since we started this study in 2006, the #1 most important factor in how marketers allocate their spending was the volume of leads that it generated. I gave them 10 choices, 9 of which were better than this, and this won year after year, 2006, 2007, 2008. Finally, in 2009, something surpassed volume of leads, and it was the depth of pre-qualification of the leads. And you can see from this chart, it's done nothing but come down since. So where does analytics fit in if volume is not the game? The depth of qualifications of the engagements or the leads is actually the top-ranked item now. This requires analytics. This requires data. Tracking data is next. This dashed line, self-managed campaigns. This is basically advertisers saying we'd like to be able to do more of it ourselves. One more threat to media and agency companies. I'm not saying it's the same, but the parallel here is what Google did with AdWords and AdSense. Just think of that. That's a self-service. That's a self-service service. And they're saying that that's important in their spending. And finally, the last item is marketing services overall. So the other point, again, the mix we talked about, but the decline of volume and the clustering, the fact that in 2010 these ratings were quite dispersed and diverse, and now they've actually converged in the top right there, you can see. So analytics plays a key role in these. That's why it's in one of the quantum laws. Now this chart, we jokingly say, if you really spend time with this and master this, you get serious credits towards your master's in marketing science. So we're not going to drill into this chart. There's a huge number of stories here, but it's really a very simple chart. We ask advertisers to rate the effectiveness of 24 marketing methods. And what we chart here is the scores for those methods that are effective and very effective. So good is to the right and the top, and weak or ineffective is to the left and bottom. The horizontal is small firms, the vertical is large, so you can see differences in large and small. But the key thing here is every year, we've done this year after year, the top right corner is owned. There's nobody close, nobody in the same neighborhood. As the most effective things they spend their money on, marketers spend their money on, more than 82% of small firms and 82% of large firms say, and the color coding here is orange is traditional and green is digital. Conferences, exhibitions, their own events, and their own website. Nothing else is close. When we talk about the mix, and I know this is sub-themed as a digital conference, the message here is the combination of digital and traditional methods. We saw email and direct mail in the earlier slide is critical, and that idea of the mix, again, is critical. We ask advertisers as well to rate the effectiveness of combinations of media. And we say, how effective is a campaign using a single type of media, even if it's digital, versus digital plus print and digital plus print plus events and various combinations? The ratings for digital plus events plus print come out 30 to 47% higher than the ratings for any media on its own, such as an all-digital campaign. So sometimes just to poke a little fun here, I say, sorry, Google, all you've got is digital. You can't help it, but you're stuck. But media companies do have an advantage here. What's in the bottom left? Print directories, print newspapers, 30% rate effective, 20, 30%. And for the last several years, smartphones and tablets. We all know it's inevitable. We all know the power. We all know where we all spend our time. But marketers say it's at the bottom of their list of what's effective for them. So, home stretch here. We added a question this year about ad tech. And I'll just read it's really 8 types of ad tech. It's real-time bidding, retargeting, exchanges, ad networks, marketing automation platforms such as Eloqua, Marketo, and so on. Attribution analysis, trying to track what contributed to the revenue. Behavioral targeting and precision targeting. So those were the 8 categories. We gave them 3 options to choose. One was it's a major growth driver. These things add revenue. These things generate revenue, growth driver. Second, we said it's neutral, neither here nor there. Third option was these things are basically just a pain. Actually, I think the word we used were these are noise, distractions, and a nuisance. So they had 3 choices. I've clustered these 2 because basically the ratings came in 2 main groups. The percent that rate real-time bidding, retargeting, ad exchanges, and ad networks, and these are B2B advertisers. These aren't analysts or journalists, B2B advertisers. 12% rate the first group as a growth driver, and 23% rate the second group as growth drivers. And 88%
rate the first group and 77 the second as either no effect or a nuisance and a diversion. Again, we all know what's happening. These are critical elements of an analytics campaign. What does it say? It basically says that when you promote your activities in these areas, and John has already set this up in his comments, don't sell on the technology. If you think you go in waving the technology and that's going to open the doors for you, beware, this is the mindset of the folks that you're speaking to. So, just like to wrap up referencing again that there's a full spectrum of methods and services in your marketing toolkits. It's not just digital, it's not just technology driven. And when you build solutions, be the masters of the mix, be the one who can help, because there's a question I haven't shown you where we ask advertisers if they, what they suffer from, and one of the key things they suffer from, they say, is too many options. So be the masters of the mix and develop and sell your expertise in that. And just, John mentioned this as well, be very, very customer focused. Understand who you're speaking to, small firm, large firm, what vertical they're in, where they are in their progression, and don't assume anything from, Lord knows, from, say, B2C, where these trends can be quite different, and don't assume that one size fits all. But pay attention and listen, and just remember to keep the scale, the pace, and the mix of solutions in mind. So with that, I'd like to set up our first panel. And it's the opening keynote, and I'm going to introduce Michael Tedman, who will introduce the panel. I also want to just comment that through AOP, Outsell has put together 5 short posts or thought pieces which cover some of these topics and will be available on the AOP website, I believe, tomorrow. So check out the AOP events side of part of the website, and you'll find some more of Outsell's stories and thinking on these topics. So, Michael.